items that are available for your use. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Westside Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Ellen Greenwood, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. As a member of our worship team, it is my pleasure to welcome each one of you, whether you are here with us in person or whether you are joining us on YouTube, either right now at the present time or at some time in the future. We are very happy that you are here, however you are here. And if you are with us in person, we invite you to stay after the service for coffee and conversation. Westside is a community where each one of us is welcome, regardless of who we are or how we identify, regardless of our religious beliefs or our lack of religious beliefs. All we ask is that we all treat each other with respect. There are announcements in your order of service if you are here in the building. There are announcements on your computer screen if you are with us from home. So be sure that you look those over carefully. I do want to remind everyone that next Sunday is Easter Sunday, and we will be celebrating Easter in our very own UU tradition of a flower communion during our service. If you have a flower or flowers available that you can bring, then bring them with you. If you don't, or if you're like me and you sometimes forget, there will be some extras here. But we will all put our flowers together, and then we will each take something that we did not bring and take that with us. So we will be communing and sharing with the flowers of spring. After the service, we have an egg hunt, Easter egg hunt for kids. So if you are a parent of a child, or if you are a child at heart, please be with us here to enjoy the Easter egg hunt. Another announcement I need to bring to your attention is that we are now in the midst of our annual canvass. This is the time that we contribute our money to support the work of this community and keeping our doors open and the lights on and our staff paid. We had a great party to kick that off last week, so I'm going to ask Ann Harvey to come up and say just a couple of words.
I thought you were doing a good job.
I ran out of steam.
So we did have a good start last week. It was a lot of fun. So you've ever watched anybody get up to the podium and they've just had a really great entertainment, and the celebrity says it's hard to come up here after what you just heard, you know, that great song or whatever, to fall and act like that. Well, so last Sunday, great party, everybody happy, doing the connections game, getting together, and then I have to get up and do a happy speech about the pledge drive. After one of the first financial bad weeks, what am I trying to say? One of the worst financial weeks in recent history in the stock market. And I'm up here saying, hey, how about giving some money to Westside? And I did. So I'm going to do it again. We've about 1/3 way through our drive as far as weeks and as far as pledges have already been received. Thank you very much. I see some faces that weren't here last week. I have an envelope for you. And for those that are watching, I also have those, and we'll get them mailed out this week. So be watching for that. You can also send your pledge back to me by email at finance@westsideuuc.org, finance@westsideuuc.org. So you can give it to me that way. And give what you can. We're all at different stages of our financial lives. And for those of you that can do a increased cost of living this year is 2.5. If you can give more increase, we really appreciate that. And I want to say again, we're doing great at Westside right now. We're growing, we have energy, and a lot of optimism. one more thing. Don't forget your pledges for this year. The 24-25 will be due by the end of June. A reminder will be going out in maybe a month or so. So, money person right here. But thank you very much for being here.
Yes, thanks, Ann. Well, our minister, the Reverend Carol Badeau, is leading a Spirit Quest weekend at Grandfather Mountain this weekend with some of our congregants, especially some of our Earth Church folks. So I know they're having a great time, but in the meantime, she just left us here to, while the cat's away, that thing. So she is a brave woman with her pulpit and very generous. And we have a wonderful tradition here at Westside of lay-led services, and I think this promises to be a very interesting service today. We'll have Yetta Jager leading the service, and then we'll have our wonderful musicians, whom we've already heard a little bit from over here, Jan Coe and Pat Luna, and they are going to all lead us in a celebration of the power of music.
Hi, I'm Yetta, and just to start us off with some sounds, I'll sound the bowl to bring us into community. And we will now light the chalice, and I'll let Ellen read.
We light our chalice this morning to recognize the power of community and communal music in the fight for justice. And we always light 2 community candles also. This morning we'll light a candle of concern because this is the 25th anniversary of the Day of Silence, a national youth movement protesting the silence faced by lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people and their allies in our schools. Silence is caused by harassment, discrimination, and prejudice. We believe that ending the silence is the first step toward fighting these injustices. And sometimes the silence can be very powerful. The 3rd song in the album, 4 + 1 = 5, for May 25 by Melvin Gibbs, has a gap of 3 minutes, 27 seconds. The length of time that the police officer's knee remained on his larynx after George Floyd last took a breath after he uttered his words, "I can't breathe." But we also light a candle of hope and to celebrate the power that music has to create change. Pete Seeger, the folk singer that many of us idolize, had a banjo with these words around the face of it. "This machine surrounds hate and forces it to surrender." And also, since we lit a candle for the Day of Silence, I really want to share as a a ray of hope, that the opposite of that is breaking the silence, and the day of silence is always followed by a breaking of the silence. And typically there is a big rally for breaking the silence, and the first one of those that I attended was one of the most powerful gatherings I have ever been in. It's kind of hard for me to talk about without becoming emotional, but it was at the pavilion at the World's Fair site in downtown Knoxville. All of these brave young people were up at the front on the stage, and they began standing there, some of them at least, with signs on their bodies that had quotations or sayings of things that had happened to them. And being a grandmother, the one that just about did me in was the one that said, "My grandmother sends me hate mail." But I thought, how can this be a joyful occasion? But at the end, as they celebrated, all of those kids turned their signs around, and they had a message of hope on their signs. And the grandmother kid had one that said, "I am learning to create my own family." So there's always hope, and lots of times music is a big part of it.
So our sermon today has two parts. Ellen and I are pretty different in height, so it's a little bit of a challenge. I'll be talking first about music and protest. So there are two instruments that I'll be talking about, the banjo and the drum, and they played an important part in the abolition movement and the civil rights movement. Both were brought over here to the Caribbean and the United States, southeastern coast, by Africans that were enslaved and brought over here on ships against their will. And it was easy for them to make a banjo because they could get them a raccoon hide or whatever, kind of hide they could find. They could put it on aisles to a neighboring plantation and then play music all night and come back and have to get up before dawn to resume their back. And in response, enslaved peoples used their own bodies to create rhythms. It was called patting the juba, and I'm not going to demonstrate it because I haven't practiced. But if you don't have a drum in front of you, that's what you will be doing today. And I'd like to remind you there are plenty of drums still up here for your use. On the other end of the emotional spectrum are lamentations and lamentation rituals. These songs, chants, and wailing were a vital part of mourning and burial practices in many cultures. For enslaved peoples, it was a way to express their grief and solace in the face of oppression, and they blended African traditions with Christian ones. In the Jewish, Christian, and Islamic cultures, lamentation rituals were usually performed by women, but they were, and as one example, in Ireland they were called keening women. But the lamentations were eventually banned by the Catholic Church as pagan rituals. But I noticed recently that the UUA offered a creative lament worship workshop this past week, which is kind of intriguing. But don't worry, I'm not going to get up here and start gnashing my teeth and pulling out my hair. Anyway, from the abolition and civil rights movements to the protests of the killing after George Floyd, music still plays an important role in the fight for justice. And those events spawned protests, songs to unify those fighting for justice. So the heroes of my generation were Woody Guthrie and Pete Seeger, who said, "The right song at the right moment can change history." But the protest songs of my generation may not speak to younger people or people from different cultures. music is evolving. Now, like I went to the Big Ears Festival a few weeks ago, and everything involves laying down loops and playing those loops. Electronic instruments are more common. Other trends include salsa music and rap. And it's easy for us to stay within the comfort zone of the music that we grew up with as teenagers or older. But I encourage you to venture out and explore new genres, because like travel and reading, listening to different music enlarges your lives and expands your horizons, and it helps you to understand different subcultures and peoples and bridge cultural divides. Is the folk genre really the best home for organic expression of the pain and suffering and frustration felt by most strongly in the Black community? I would argue that maybe rap music or other forms might be a better place for allies to listen for protest movement music after events like the murder of George Floyd. And now we will begin to do some drumming, and I'll turn it over to Jan. And Pat.
If anybody, come and get the rest of the instruments. That's the first thing. Do not be shy.
I'll speak into the microphone for Jan. Please come up and get these drums. They're beautiful drums, and they need people to play them. And we can bring some out to you if you want us to.
Shakers. If in doubt. Anyone else? I'll bring something out. I'm in the middle. All right, so a beautiful way to just connect with music and rhythm is rhythm. And so today we are going to do a drum circle, or maybe a drum multiple semicircles. I'm not sure what we qualify as. We're creative. But I'm going to have Pat start us off, and then everybody join in as you're ready. Play what you want. If you didn't get an instrument and don't want one, you can sing, you can clap, you can hum, you can stomp your feet, dance around the room, whatever you feel inspired to do. And these things do have their own just timing, so it always amazes me that they start, they go somewhere, and then you kind of know when it's ending. So that's what we'll do. It's a total mystery until it happens. But what I'm going to do, in the spirit of what Ellen was talking about, let's just take a few seconds, not a long time, to be quiet and breathe together. Just settle yourself into the room and take some deep breaths.
that was really great. You guys did an excellent job. Thank you very much. So, if you've been to one of Jan's workshops, or even today, you know that music is medicine. And I'm a scientist, or was a scientist, and so it's important to me to sort of verify that that's actually the case. It can help us to cope with extreme stress without drugs. It lowers your cortisol levels. It can help to manage pain for individuals who have cancer, fibromyalgia, multiple sclerosis, osteoarthritis, chemotherapy, and undergoing other medical procedures, as well as childbirth. One meta-analysis of almost 100 different randomized and controlled trials showed that music-based interventions reduce the intensity and emotional distress caused by pain. And people with some neurological conditions like aphasia after stroke can sometimes sing despite losing the ability to speak. And that's because speech is primarily controlled by the left side of your brain, whereas music uses both sides of your brain. And so what they do is they rewire the brain by using music and finding other ways to bypass the damaged areas. And musical therapy can improve the life for dementia patients by reducing agitation and helping them to recall memories through different pathways, and thereby it can improve their communication. I know that my grandmother was able to play piano. She was a very good piano player. She was able to play well past her ability to do anything else when she had Alzheimer's, because it was using different neurological pathways and what we call muscle memory. Sharing music as a community is also an important and valuable thing because it reduces our isolation, and we all know that isolation, like during COVID, is not good for us. As Pete Seeger said, once upon a time, wasn't singing a part of everyday life as much as talking, physical exercise, and religion? Our distant ancestors, whenever they were in this world, sang, pounding grain, paddling canoes, or walking on long journeys. Can we begin to make our lives once more all of a piece by finding the right songs and singing them over and over again? That's a good way to start. And when one person taps out a beat while another leads the melody, or when three people discover a harmony they never knew existed, or when a crowd joins in a chorus as though to raise the ceiling a few feet higher, then they know there is also hope for the world. And now, let us sing. This is a call and response song, and the words will be up there, but don't be looking at them. Just watch the choir. If the choir could come on up. We'll have the low voices on this side and the high voices on that side, and you can all decide which kinds of voices you want to be. And the low voices are going to do the call, and the high voices are going to do the response. And what we're going to do is the choir is going to go through it first. Only one word changes between each verse, and I will try to cue you on it, so you don't need to really be looking at anything else. So the first time it's faith, then hope, then love, and then joy. And they're going to do the faith verse first, and then we're going to start over with the faith verse, and you guys can all come in with either this group or that group.
Ready?
for the bad cueing. So we have many opportunities for generosity to be expressed here at Westside. If you look up on, there's a QR code up here, there's a QR code on the box back there, there's a QR code on your order of service, or you can just use the boxes. And we also support our community partners, which right now is Knox Pride. So thank you for your generosity. And now, to end our service, we will have some healing music for a few minutes by Jan and Pat, and then please join us for coffee and conversation in the back. Thank you very much. Appreciate your participation.